We've got some fresh
Hey,
new
I'm
young
Luis.
talent
And
doing some
I'm
things
Luis.
that I
And you're
know you
listening
haven't
to the
heard
Content is
before.
Profit podcast.
And we spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit.
If you'd like to learn how to turn that content into profit, just go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah, baby.
Ooh, today, special PodMax episode.
baby.
And I'm excited about this one.
Yes.
Our guest was extremely proactive. And we're going to be talking all
know.
about how to leverage the skill set of systems creation.
This speaks to me,
and-
Fonzie. This speaks to me.
And wealth building, which is...
Oh, it speaks
I
to me
think this
too.
speaks to everybody.
To everybody. I know.
Yes.
All right, guys, before we get started, go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button so you know stories like this are dropping on your phone every Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturday. So you can enjoy them. And follow us on social media at BaseBrosCo.
That is right. And please, if you find this episode impactful and you believe somebody that you know could benefit from hearing from it, please don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Special episode alert. We partner with PodMax to share the stories of some of the amazing people that are shaping our future. People that are taking their ideas and turning them into reality. These stories are meant to empower you to build the future you want.
Oh, yeah, guys. And today's guest, like we said, is absolutely epic.
Yes.
And his superpower
Yes.
is looking at things from a macro point of view and understanding what is the next best thing to do. Wouldn't that be a superpower that we want to have in our business?
I know. I hope you had that superpower. I'm
I
not
know,
sure. I mean,
yeah.
I'm doing my best over here. Just saying. Okay.
Guess what, guys? After working 15 years in the corporate world, he transitioned and built his own business alongside his wife.
Ooh,
I think that
so
is
good.
one of the best parts. I think that is so meaningful right there. And they managed to build a $5 million real estate rental portfolio. And now they teach other entrepreneurs how to turn $25,000 into a multi-million-dollar rental portfolio.
I know.
Yes.
My wife Katie is listening to this, and she's gonna be like, "Luis, please go. Let's do this,
do that.
please." Yeah. And guess what? You know, they have taught over 100 entrepreneurs how to do exactly that through their value-add real estate investing strategy. Huh. So,
know.
Katie, you know, we might have to go meet Niti in person.
But what
Just
is the
saying.
fun fact? I love his fun fact.
I know. So this fun fact, he used to be part of the rock band where he played the keyboard and sang. So maybe for part 2, I don't think for part 1, but for part 2, we might be able to, you know, do a duet with you on the guitar, he on the keyboards, and I'll just watch.
I definitely need to practice for that.
His company is Open Space Capital.
So you guys know, if you want to check more
Yes.
about what he's doing as his incredible value add real estate investing strategy, go check him out at Open Space Capital. Please welcome master strategist, real estate connoisseur, and maybe the next member of your rock band, Niti Jamdar. Welcome, Niti.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I love the intro, and I gotta tell you guys, I love your show. I'm so happy to be a guest on here.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to have you here, man. Like we said at the very beginning, you were so proactive, introducing yourself, sending us an email, and we love everything about that.
Yeah, I mean, the second we got that, right, it was like, okay, new standards for us when we go to other shows, right? Because
Yep.
that's so impressive. So, I mean, I'm sure that you're the master of high-level strategy, and I can't wait to dive into that, right? And relationship building. And before we went on camera, we were chatting just a little bit about that. But before we get into all of that and the real estate goodness and Gucci stuff that's coming out there, right? Tell us a little bit, how does that journey start for you, right? It's not often that, you know, we interview, I mean, people so knowledgeable like you, and we're very interested in their backstories and how that fire got ignited.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, my wife and I were both in sort of corporate jobs. This is about 5 or 6 years back. And we were kind of, you know, on the traditional journey of that most people kind of follow, right? So society tells you to get a good education, and I got a couple of master's degrees, and then people say, oh, get a good job out of college, and I did that. And so I did everything by the book, right? The kind of everything that society tells you to do. And I thought I was heading down the right path because that's what people tell you to do. But what I realized was that even though I was achieving all these goals, where I was in life, it didn't meet the vision that I had for my life. Right. And everything kind of changed when we had our first kid. So we had a daughter, and I was looking at her, and nothing makes you question your life choices like a crying baby in your hands. Right.
I can definitely relate. Yeah, I have a 2-year-old, so yes.
There you go. And I looked at her, I was like, wait, something needs to change, right? Like I didn't have, other than a big mortgage and a good car, I didn't have a lot of wealth to show for everything that I'd done. I would have to work till I was 60 or 65 if I continued down the same path. Yeah. Life was really stressful. I couldn't really see my kids and family whenever I wanted because I was always at work. And so like something needs to change, right? And that was kind of the light bulb moment where like, all right, I need to do something about this. And, I sort of looked at different opportunities and real estate sort of came up.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
But you have a pretty interesting pre-real estate background too, right? Like besides doing your life by the book, right? You work for some Fortune 100 companies, right? So you made it pretty high in what people would call the corporate ladder. And I'm sure you learned some valuable skills along the way that helped you build your real estate empire that you have right now, right? And I'm extremely curious, what are some of those skills? And did you develop those consciously, or it was just kind of like a product of the journey?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, so, when I was in corporate, as you said, I was working really hard and doing all the right things. So I got promoted every couple of years, and I was in different leadership programs in the company. So I was rising up fast, right? And I thought in my mind back then that professional career in corporate has nothing to do with entrepreneurship, right? I was like, I can't be an entrepreneur because nobody ever taught me to be like an entrepreneur, so I can never be good at it. But what I realized was that all the skills that I was learning in corporate can actually be used, are so useful when you start an entrepreneurship journey, right? So yes, there's some mindset shifts, but the skills that I was learning, like building teams, right, setting strategic goals, and kind of before you even start doing something or before you figure out what your goals are, you need to figure out, okay, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish, and is this the best way to do it? And then once you figure that out, what are the knowledge gaps, right? Like how do you figure out what you need to learn to be able to get good at achieving that goal? And then working with teams and getting everybody on board and selling your vision. So I was learning all these skills that I didn't really realize I could actually apply it on the business side.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it can, you totally can.
I love it. So we've had people in the show that they come straight from entrepreneurship side of things where like they don't even give a try to the corporate world, right? There's some people that give it a little try and they're like, I'm frustrated with like the situation or whatever's happening there, and then they find a solution to their and go chase their passion, right? And like Fonzie said, and like how you mentioned, you went all the way to that high level, and I think like we haven't had the chat with somebody that got to that point. Do you consider that was really helpful in your journey to be able to execute today? And would you recommend people at least give it a try, like a legit try where it's like, okay, I might be frustrated today, but let me evolve a little bit on this journey with a company and learning those skills so then I can perform better, right? Because we have both views. We've had people that have reached the top and they're like, oh my God, this worked for me. Like, I'm very thankful to that journey, even though like I wasn't fulfilled and now I'm able to execute my mission. But there's some people that from the very beginning, like us, for example, I didn't even give it a try. I was like, heck no, I'm not going that route, right? And I've learned along the way, hitting walls, and that's fine. Like that's what I chose to do. So how's your vision? Like, would you recommend people like follow your heart? What, like, give it a try, even if you don't like it? What's the lesson behind that?
Absolutely. And, one of the things that I tell people who are in corporate and who've, done, that's all they've done. Don't believe it when people tell you that you can't be an entrepreneur. Right. That's not true. Like people used to tell, like my parents, like when I decided to, do real estate full time, my parents were like, wait, what are you crazy? Like you're throwing away your career. Like that's all you've worked for all your life. But that's because most people don't know any better either. Right. So don't get into this notion that you can't really cut it as an entrepreneur just because you worked in corporate.
Yeah.
And I would totally, and look, you don't have to suddenly just quit your job in corporate and then, take the plunge right away, right? So you can kind of ease into it. So what we did, my wife and I, we kind of eased into it. So my wife first quit her job 3 or 4 years back, and we were like, all right, we'll figure this out. And we had a couple of rentals by then, and we had enough income coming in. They were like, all right, she can quit her job now.
Yeah.
And then we built our income more and more and keep building the assets that we were buying. And then a point came and I'm like, all right, now I can, quit my full-time job and join her in the business.
Yeah.
So you can totally ease into it rather than just like going cold turkey and be like, I'm going to quit my job and
Yeah, we can tell for experience that going cold turkey might not be the best option out there. Causes a lot of stress.
I know,
but
just so you know, when Fonzie's stressed, he pimples show up all over his face. So the first year of business, he was just a pimple, just full of pimples.
I just became a big pimple. But Niti, I love this, and I know you mentioned a mindset shift along your journey, right? And I'm curious because I have this feeling that even though you went, like, I have this feeling that you never actually thought, or maybe you gave it some thought, but put it in the back of your head, the thought of being an entrepreneur. You were like, I just want to be successful in the corporate ladder, right? So when that changed, right, when your son was born, or your daughter, if I'm not mistaken, when your daughter was born, and you started questioning things, what took for you to change that mindset? What was that mindset shift that happened? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that might find themselves in the corporate world that they have never even give entrepreneurship a thought about, right? Like they've never wondered if they could be an entrepreneur, and that might be the answer to the problems that they're currently having, right? So we often talk that having awareness is the first step to solving a problem, right? And with that awareness comes a mental shift, right? A mindset shift. So I'm extremely curious on what was that for you? How did that look like?
Yeah. I think, as you said, awareness, right? And that's kind of like, when I had my daughter, that was kind of, it hit me pretty hard. And what most of us are taught to do in society or in corporate is you work through the pain, right? That's what the message the society gives us. Look, you push through the pain and you get through it, and your kids are small. Once they're 5 or 6 and a little bit older, they'll get just push through the pain. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to push through the pain. I don't want to push through the pain because I don't like this reality, and I'm going to change my reality. So for me, my why was so strong that, and it's funny, like I used to tell, when I used to had bad days at work, I used to come and tell my wife, I was like, you know what?
Oh my God.
Even though I love my job and I love what I do, but this is the reason why I keep reminding myself that I want to build a business and not do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Right. And you gotta feel that pain. Don't let go of that pain, because that pain is gonna guide you through even when you're failing in your business or something is not going as fast as you want. That why kind of stays with you, and that kind of gives you that motivation.
Yeah, that's interesting. And literally the last 2 days I've been obsessed with this song. It's called Skin in the Game, right? And I was like, oh, it has such a good vibe. I love it. And then I started looking at the lyrics, because a lot of the times I don't really understand the full lyrics until I actually look them up. And part of the song talks about embracing that pain, right? It's like talking about loving that pain. And it got me thinking, it's like, wow, like, actually, with action comes a lot of that, right? But that can act, like you said, as fuel to keep moving forward. I think that is so important. And thank you for sharing. Really, I have some questions, and I know I want to do a transition here to systems, processes, and wealth creation. But I don't know if my brother wants to chime in before.
No, I think that this is a perfect time to do that. And why is because over the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about frameworks and how we can make decisions easier going through frameworks and the systems that we built, right? And when we started the agency side of things, there's zero systems, zero frameworks, right? We're just gonna do, right? Execute, right? A couple of years ago, and it went crazy. We went crazy. We're like, okay, how can we scale this? How can we even hire somebody to do something that we can't do anymore? Or how can we delegate our time and different things, right? And it wasn't until we understood the concept of a framework and a system, and we started building them, right, and continue to improve them here and there. And for those listening that are interested in content, that's what we do, right? The M2M is a system that we created to maximize the efforts, right, from long format content creation side of things to leverage, right? And that's why we were able to plug in team members, right? And for us, maybe that's a smaller scale to what you're used to. But I'm very interested to know, when was your start in the system side of things, in frameworks? What are your general thoughts, and how do you apply those today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, I always learn systems and processes at work on the corporate side, but I changed how I applied them when I came to the business, right? Because what happens is in corporate, the teams are already predefined.
Yeah.
So so when you're going sort of running a project, you just rely on the different teams to kind of do the work that they're doing. You focus on what you're supposed to do. So it's a little bit easier in that sense. But when you come into business, you're like, wait a minute, like now I got to build the teams and I got to figure out what I do versus what other people do, right? And what I would recommend, what we did was you figure out what you're really, really good at, and two, what your superpower is, right? As you guys use that word a lot, like what's your superpower?
Yeah.
And two, does that bring you money, right? Is it profitable? If you're really good at something but it doesn't make you money, then it's not worth doing it, right? Because why would you do that? So you need to be really, really good at it. It needs to make you money, and you want to have fun doing it.
Yep.
So if those three criteria are met, like I'm gonna do that for the business, and I'm gonna outsource the rest, right? So if I talk about real estate, for example, I'm big on outsourcing stuff and not doing everything that you need to do, right? So there's two things in real estate that you can never outsource, and I'm just using real estate as an example, but you can use it for any business, right? So for real estate, deal analysis and finance are two things that you can never outsource, because those are the things that you need to know. So finding good deals and knowing what a good deal is, and then how to find the money. Money is the most important thing for any business, right? Understanding finance and understanding money.
Yeah.
So those two things you can never outsource. Everything else, we've figured out how to outsource it to different people, so that we're focusing on things that we're good at and that make us money, and we just outsource the rest.
I love it. And that is something that we learned pretty late along our journey. That was the fact of focusing on the things that move the needle forward, right? And that's what you're talking about, those deal analysis and finance, right? For us is proactively building the relationships that are going to create those deals, right? And often, and actually I was having a conversation yesterday with one of our mentors, Jerry McNamara, and he was telling me, like, people love to just feel like they're doing something in the business by distracting themselves, doing the logo, working on the website. Like, those are things that first, they're not 100% necessary to actually make money and build your business, but people think they are. And because they're afraid of doing the actual things that are going to move the needle forward, now they start doing and taking on those activities. So the question for me, and I think it is going to go back to the pain probably, but is what keeps you focused on those two things? And do you have a framework to delegate, outsource, prioritize your activities? If so, how does that look like?
Fantastic question. So I think for us, it's almost down to a science now for our business, right? But what happens is that even when you are very intentional about, okay, this is what I'm going to work on because it's the most profitable thing to do, there'll still be times when you don't look at it, that you start other activities start creeping in that you start working on, and you're like, wait a minute, like, why am I working on this? Because this is not that important. So what we do is we every week or so we sit down and we kind of say, what do we need to automate, delegate, or eliminate? Right, those three things. And we look at all the things that we are working on, and we can say, all right, you know what, this just doesn't need to be done because it's not adding any value, or let's just find a team to outsource it, or can be automated through systems, and or technology, and that's worked pretty well. And you still have to keep reminding yourself every week, because things can creep in, and you'll start, because especially in a business, you wear so many hats yourself that things are going to come on, and you got to constantly sort of remind yourself.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this part, and I think that's something that what we call golden boulder for sure.
Yeah.
Because I've been geeking out on time tracking, right? And Fonzie introduced me to this wonderful tool where like you flip the little thing and it tracks your time, right? And I've been very conscious on my tracking because I've been able to identify areas in my day where, well, first off, as soon as I changed the setting, I'm like execution time. So now I do things, right? Because then it avoids us from distractions. But then later we can measure those outputs, right, that we put into our job and be like, okay, with following your framework, as in, what can we automate? What can we delegate or eliminate? Now we can make that decision based on data, right? So one of the things, we have a challenge going on right now with about 100 people that came into our group going live on Facebook for 45 days straight, right? And it can become a little challenging after like day 15 or so. We started seeing people were like, oh my God, like this is crazy. And we're start measuring, right? What is your time? Because sometimes our perceived time in our head, it might be very different to the actual execution time, right? So it's like, start measuring what is your capacity around, specifically for us, content creation. For a business like you on real estate, well, what is the time that you're spending finding those deals or, delegating or XYZ, right? But start measuring, because then you're going to be able to make that decision. So that did not start there, right? So my question to you, because I struggled with that for the longest time, was how do I find, like, what was the transition point between not doing that to doing it, right? You come from a corporate background, so it's very mechanic, very specific, the things and the tasks that we can do. But for an entrepreneur, first, if they don't really know what they're good at, like how what's the first step there, right? Because in my mind, I think we were decent at many things, and also we dive into many things as well to kind of test things out. Yeah. And then we absolutely love it, but then we're like, okay, what are we actually really good at? And that was a really challenging question to answer in order to move on. So how can we spot that first time we're like, oh, that is the one thing?
Let me add to that question too. How do people, because we love, like my brother said, just diving in and learning stuff. We just love learning how to do stuff. And then we had this fear of letting go stuff, right? So it took us like 3 years to actually get to hire someone that helped us for the first time. So how do they let go of that fear as well?
Yeah, no, that's both awesome questions. I think, for us, I'll tell you, for me personally, like it's very difficult to know what you're good at yourself, because you don't know anything else. Like, all you know is what you've done in your life, right? And so the way I got to know how I was good at certain things was external feedback, right? So people used to tell me, hey, Niti, like, you're really good at this thing, man. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize it came so naturally to me that I didn't even think that I was good at it, but I was really good at it, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of learn. So always ask each other, especially if you guys are partners in the business. That's great, because you can give each other that feedback. And it's the same with my wife and I. And also with my wife and I, we're very different people, and we bring different skills to the table. So she's always like, she's a hustler. She's like, she takes on like so many things, and she's like, and she gets it done, right? Yeah. For me, sometimes I'll be like, all right, no, why are we doing this? Because we don't need to be doing it. And so we balance each other out. Sometimes when she's doing too much, I'll be like, no, we don't need to work on this. And sometimes when I'm getting a little lazy, she'll be like, no, you better work on this stuff because it needs to get done, right? So you kind of figure out that balance with each other. Right?
Yeah. I love it. And thank you. Because I mean, we've been interviewed in a couple of couples podcasts too. And we're real brothers. We're not together. Anyways, but the thing is, like, it's been hilarious, right? Because also our relationship in the working space is like that, right? It's okay, we got to find out like who's good at what. Fonzie is amazing at coming up with these amazing ideas and like, hey, let's go dream, go to the crazy zone, right? But when it comes to execution, I feel like we need a little bit of work there. And we've talked about this, right? And then on my end, right, I tend to like focus too much on like the processes and dive like very deep and then let go of the crazy zone area. So we're trying to constantly find that balance. And I remember yesterday we actually had a conversation where I was like, hey, Fonzie, look what I built this week. That was my project this week. I built my weekly framework. I'm building these containers, right? And shout out to George Bryan, who was a guest on the show. And he talks about this a lot. Those containers that we can execute without anything interfering, like leaking out or leaking in, right? Like calls or like discovery calls, all this kind of stuff. Like let's set those boundaries, right? So I didn't have those boundaries. They're very loose within my week. And then as I started tracking, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm getting so distracted, right? And I think George shares like it takes about 27 minutes for our brains to kind of go back into focus mode, right? So that to me was like, holy crap, I'm losing so much time on execution. So I'm building those containers to be able to do that. I'm like, hey, Fonzie, here's something that we can actually do. Come together, let's do this, and then let's execute and reassess and come back to it. So it's so important to go back and receive that feedback. You know, we talk about that IDEO process of even on the product, on the content, but also in our day-to-day frameworks on how we operate. I think that's so important. And so many people miss it because we're so focused on the external side of things, right? The external results.
Yeah, I want to point out something here, Niti, that you said, and I actually want to challenge the listeners to go and do this. You said the external feedback to determine what you're good at. I don't know if you heard it, but my brother and I both were like, whoa, right? Like that was a great moment because often I feel like most people believe they have to figure out what they're good at by themselves. But the fact that we're getting objective point of views telling you what you're actually good at I feel like it just opens the door for a whole new way of thinking, because now you're like, wow, I'm really good at this. Do I actually enjoy doing this? And if it's a yes, it's a match right there too, right? So it is so important. So I want to challenge the listeners to go and ask 5 of your closest, I'm not just going to say friends, but like business people around you, right? Someone that is going to give you an objective point of view, and ask them, what am I good at, right? What am I really good at? And write those down, because I think maybe the answers might surprise you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and ask people now, but I'm like, what am I good at, right?
So they're going to be like, coffee.
Coffee.
In general.
Drinking coffee.
Drinking coffee.
Yeah, Niti, this is amazing. So now let's transition a little bit into the wealth building, because I am surprised when I read that you teach people how to turn a $25,000 investment into a multi-million-dollar rental portfolio. Is that a $25,000 like liquid that they must have? Is that a loan that they can get? Like, how does that process look like?
Yeah, so that $25,000 could be, you don't necessarily have to have it cash when you start. It's always good if you do, but you could even have it in like a 401k account, or you could have like equity in your house. If you own a house, if there's a lot of equity in your house, you can borrow it against the house. So there's different ways to come up with 25,000. But the key is, once you have that, that's literally all you need. That's how we started. Right. So when we started, we didn't have a lot of cash. Even though we were both earning really well, we didn't have a lot of cash because we always used to spend it all on things, right? On buying things, which is not good. And then, but we didn't start with a lot of money. So we started with 25,000 and we built it into this portfolio in 3 years. Right. So it's very, very doable. And that's what we teach people, because one of the most powerful things about real estate is that you can leverage your money. Right? A bank is not going to give you a loan to invest in the stock market. A bank is going to give you a loan to invest in real estate, because that's a collateral that the bank can use.
Yeah.
So that's the power of real estate.
Okay. Love it. And we might have to do a part 2 just on wealth creation side of things, Niti. Just saying that we can dive in and dissect this. We were chatting the other day that we've connected with amazing real estate people. And the more that we talked about this was something that was completely unknown for us. We come from Venezuela. Markets there are very different than here, at least on our personal background with our family. Nobody in our family really invested. We have a couple properties back home, but it is not to the level that people might be using it here, right? So I'm very interested on that side of things. But something that really stuck with me, because we use this word a lot, leverage, right? We use content to leverage relationship building, strategic partnerships, different things that can benefit both parties, right? So on your point of view, can you define leverage, like within the real estate world, like the money? Because a lot of people understand, or everybody that's coming into the real estate world, they might not understand that, or they can be like, debt is like death, right? I remember the first time I chatted with my wife, and me too, like that was the thing, like my misconception is like debt is death.
I remember, or that actually, when we were coming for the first time to the US, he was saying like, try to pay everything for cash, like don't go into debt for anything. So that got stuck in our mind, right? And it is a false belief that I have now, I realize after getting to know very successful people.
Yeah, exactly.
You're spot on. So, it's funny you say that because so my wife and I both grew up in India, and in India is the same way. So everything you buy for cash. People like when we were growing up, there were no credit cards in India, right? And everything was in cash. You would buy a house for a cash and car, and people used to save up for like 10, 15 years to buy a house because that's the only way you can buy a house. So it was a big mindset shift for us when we got to the US. We're like, wait a minute, like a bank is willing to give you so much money for such a low interest rate. We're at historical low interest rates right now. Like you can get a house for 3% interest or 3.5%, even lower.
Yeah.
And that's basically free money. That's like keeping up with inflation, right? Inflation is around 2%.
Wow.
So a bank is willing to give you money. So instead of me spending $100,000 to buy a house, I can spend $25,000 and I can buy 4 houses, right? Instead of buying 1 house. So now I just quadrupled my returns because I'm going to leverage my money. So that's where the power is. And I totally agree that it's a mindset shift, but if you leverage responsibly, it's so powerful.
So
cool.
So good.
Yes.
I know we've talked about it the other day. We were sitting here at the office and crazy zone time, right? And we were like, okay, what is really the end game of what we're doing right now, right? Because we started from literally making vinyl stickers, by hand. That's really how the Bizro side of things started. And Fossey shakes, he says like, oh my God, I don't miss those days. And then we screen printing t-shirts and we didn't really understand the power of leverage, the power of delegating, all these amazing things that you're sharing with us today, right? And as we evolve in our journey, 5-6 years later, we now have a team. It's incredible because now we're leveraging, the time. They love what they do. They're extremely passionate. We enjoy editing, but not anymore. And the guy that does the whole editing for us and has his agency on his side, he builds computers. That's his thing, right? And he loves it and adores it. So as we're dreaming, right, we're like, okay, what is the end game, right? And it's like, okay, we need to leverage this asset that we're creating right now with our company to how can we achieve the bigger goals that we have, right? Like maybe go and help back home, right? We have amazing Venezuelan friends that are doing wonderful things. How can we add to that amazing equation here in the States? How can we help our family, right? And then these questions start to realize, and we start meeting people like you, and we're like, okay, that might be the answer, right? Leveraging the assets, leveraging the money, leveraging the relationships, right? On a mutual beneficial relationship. It's not that we're throwing people under the bus. Absolutely not, right? And I think it does take that mindset shift, right? And it's conversations with you, Niti, and I'm going to encourage you to please continue to have these conversations and putting your voice out there because people need to know this with your experience. So definitely we're going to have to do part 2 on wealth building just alone.
Yeah.
So we can do like a crash course.
Yeah, I know time is running out, right? And just to complete the thought of my brother, I don't know if you actually completed
I know, I didn't.
On the end game, we started thinking like, okay, how can we get to that real estate investing level when now we have quote unquote, right? I'm doing air quotes here, the passive income, right? Because it is never passive, to be honest, right? But for us was like, well, our goal is going to have to be build a company to a certain point that then we can sell it for a certain amount of money and then we can use that money to invest in real estate. So then we can get that passive income, I'm doing air quotes again, coming our way. So then we have our time now. We have a lot of time that we can leverage into doing other things that we're very passionate about or investing into other businesses. Recently, we have geeked out about buying other businesses as well. Very cool stuff. But Niti, we're so pumped up. I'm sure you can tell that this has been so excited. Yeah. I want to invite you before we close this conversation down to share some of those success stories that you've had, because you guys had a few, and by few I mean like over 100 successful stories. So share a few of those.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a program where we basically coach exactly how to do what we did. Which is you take $25,000 and turn it into a multi-million-dollar portfolio. So, we have a lot of rock star students. So one of them is Lais, who's incredible. She graduated from the program, I want to say 3 months back.
Wow.
She already has 11 units. And, she bought like a few single family homes. She just bought an 8-unit building. So we have like so many of these success stories where people are on their, 5+, 10+ units.
Wow.
In a very short period of time. And the
Incredible.
best part about the strategy is that you put in the money and you force the appreciation because you're doing the rehab piece. So you buy a distressed property, you rehab it, and you're forcing the appreciation, and then you rent it out. So what that does is that you use the same money that you used on that first property and you pull it back out when the project is done and use the same money and recycle it for your next project, right? So that's why it removes the capital constraint. So we have so many success stories very quickly because it's a great strategy.
That's amazing. Dude, Niti, where can people find more about you, about your program? Where can they go? We're going to put all those links right in the description so people can just get in contact with you guys. Where are they going?
So you can find me either on LinkedIn, just look for Niti Jamdar. We have a free Facebook group where we just did a 1 hour session where we went through goal setting for 2021. If you're looking to build a portfolio, it's called Real Estate Investing with Busy Professionals. You can check that out. But yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me, DM me, whatever you like.
I love it. I love how your evolution, like you know, from this corporate world, and then you took action, you guys implemented, you guys had massive success, and now you're giving back to a lot of people that might be looking for that same solution, right? And in the entrepreneurial world, we've seen a lot of people doing that, but you know, the way that you guys do it with real estate and your own story, your own case, how you guys started is so relatable. So
I mean, what you guys are building is not just wealth, is generational wealth. So you're just not helping that one student that is graduating, but you're helping probably, you know, their kids, their grandkids, who know their parents too. You know, like you guys are helping so many people, and that is so exciting. And I love the way you guys are doing it. And Niti, honestly, I love everything about you and your wife. Like you have such a good energy. So I do want to encourage listeners right now to go and contact Niti. Go on LinkedIn, Niti Jamdar. Please look him up. We're going to leave the links below. So scroll down, click in there, and send him a message. Connect.
Yeah. Hey, Niti, before we head out, is there anything that we missed that you might want to share? Maybe an action point for people to, like, if they're stuck right now on their maybe entrepreneurial journey, like what can they do
or
to get on the corporate journey, right? What can they do?
Yes, that's a great. So one last thought that I'll leave you with is, I think if you're planning to either do real estate or join real estate at some point, first think about your vision, right? Think about where, like 10, 15 years down, where you want to be. You want to have time on your hands, you want to have generational wealth, whatever it is, right? Whatever's important to you. Once you have that vision, then figure out a real estate strategy that works for you, right? What is that strategy going to be? There's so many ways to make money in real estate. Figure out what that one thing is for you. And once you know that strategy, and we love the value-add investing strategy because it works very fast. But whatever that strategy is for you, once you figure out that strategy, then figure out, okay, how can I get there? What are the gaps in my knowledge that I can fill? Who can I learn that from, right? And learn those skills, and then once you have the skills, then just obsess about achieving them. I always say obsess, don't dabble, because a lot of people like do a little bit here and there. You got to obsess about it until you achieve it. So that's my sort of 2 cents.
That's so awesome.
Obsess, don't dabble. I'm writing this down. I feel like I do dabble a lot, so I'm gonna maybe tattoo that on my arm, Niti, so I can read it every single day.
Yes. Dude, Niti, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. Thank you so much. Again, open invitation for do part 2 on the wealth creation and dive deep into these amazing strategies. We'll be students of the master at that point, and hopefully people from the audience can join too. So with that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Contents Profit Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe. Smash that subscribe button and follow us on social media at BizBrosCo.
That is right. And if you find this episode impactful and you want to build generational wealth, please go and contact Niti. And if you enjoy it, share the episode as well. And don't forget to leave a 5-star review. Thank you.
Bye, guys.